77 WABC and Bergen Newbridge Medical Center honor the life of legendary broadcaster and our friend, Ernie Anastas.
Hi, it's Ernie Anastas. You know, your thoughts can affect how you feel. Bergen Newbridge Medical Center is the largest hospital in New Jersey, providing comprehensive, equitable, compassionate, and high-quality emergency inpatient and outpatient medical care, plus mental health services and substance use disorder treatment. The Bergen Newbridge team can address your total health needs in one convenient location. Call 201-225-7130 for an appointment or newbridgehealth.org.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
People love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
And I'm Jake Novak in for Roger Stone on this Tuesday night, May 12th. And I guess the biggest story internationally, also here in the U.S., is that President Trump has gone off to China to begin that big summit. I mean, it's always a big summit, especially. These are the two biggest powers in the world. I don't think anyone denies that anymore. The summit actually doesn't start until Thursday, but that'll still be like Wednesday our time because of the time difference. Nevertheless, the president won't be going directly into talks with President Xi Jinping going right in there. I want to talk a little bit for a moment about the way that the news media has decided to cover the story so far. And of course, the only story right now, the only documented thing that we can talk about is that President Trump's gotten on Air Force One on his way over there. And that's usually big enough. As I just said, this is a summit between the two biggest nations in the world, the leaders of the two biggest nations in the world. In the case of China, it's a dictatorship. I don't like to say the Chinese government. It implies that there's a democracy. So I like to say the Beijing regime. And for that, I'm sure the CCP doesn't like me. I've also done entire podcasts where I kind of pretended to be Worf from Star Trek and talked about how the Chinese government has no honor, the Chinese regime, because they don't. They don't have any honor. They have a culture of victimhood there. By the way, if you think America's African Americans or America's Jewish people or any other minority has a sense of victimhood, we got nothing on the Chinese. The Chinese really play the victim card big time. We're not aware of that in this country because most of us are not educated properly, but the Chinese did take a good deal of victimization from the Japanese, from the British, not really so much from us. The victimization China has taken at our hands, which was somewhat during the Korean War, was entirely China's fault. No one asked them to cross the Yalu River and get involved in the Korean War, which was a big L for everyone, by the way, involved. But they really believe that the rest of the world has wronged them. And because of that, they believe they have no morality that they have to uphold, because everyone has got it coming. But so this is a big story. It's a big story as it is. But the mainstream news media has decided to really put in what I consider to be some ridiculous editorializing in their headlines, to the point that it's almost ridiculous. So, and by the way, they all march to the same drummer. I mean, I don't know if they all get a memo. They probably do. There's probably some think tanks in D.C., left-wing or supposedly moderate ones. The Brookings Institution is a big left-wing think tank that still comes off, or at least tries to pretend that it's a moderate think tank. It is not. But okay. I'm convinced that some of these think tanks send talking points to all the mainstream media outlets, and a lot of them use the same ones. I think that's where the sources of this are. And places like the Brookings Institute, of course, institution would be a logical source of them because it's been shown that they get a massive amount of funding from our foreign enemies. So I'm sure some of the other think tanks do too. But anyway, the headline I'm seeing a lot is "Stung by the Iran War, President Trump goes to China summit." How is President Trump stung by this war? I'd like to know. Well, Jake, his approval ratings are down. Well, he's not running for re-election. And he also has more approval from the Republicans in this country than he's ever had before. So I don't really know if that's the case. The people who believe that these midterm elections are going to be decided by what's going on in Iran, I think, are completely deluded. That's not really going to be a factor one way or the other. Even if we have a major victory in the next couple of weeks and gas prices start coming down, I still don't think that that's going to be a major factor in the midterm elections. All politics are local, except for when the DNC tries to nationalize everything from dog catcher up to governor, which they try to do. So, you every other year during the midterm elections, you hear about, for example, a district that's really red or really had an opportunity to go Republican or really had an opportunity to be Democrat, and they run some kook candidate. I mean, Maine is a good example. The Republicans were on the ropes in Maine with this Susan Collins, who doesn't have MAGA support because she doesn't deserve it. She's not a supporter of the president, and everyone has a right not to support the president if they want to, but she's chosen some stupid battles to fight against Trump. And she chose a stupid battle in the years before Trump on Obamacare, thinking that this was going to help her state, and it didn't. But now the Democrats have accommodated this whole situation for Susan Collins by they're going to back this Nazi who has not just a Nazi tattoo on his chest, but he has an SS tattoo of the specific SS division that ran and operated the death camps. That's not like a tattoo that you get by accident. It's much worse than a swastika, by the way. I mean, talk about kooks changing a whole tide of possibilities for the Democrats in Maine. And the Republicans have run some kooks in their time, too, where they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory when they could have easily won something. So I'd like to know exactly where President Trump is stung by the Iran war. The Iranian military is badly defeated. Yes, they can restock, and maybe they still have a lot of missiles, but most of their missiles have totally missed the mark. Their military is tremendously depleted. Their nuclear program is definitely set back. Right now, the only discussion is, will they hand over the nuclear dust or the uranium that they still have, enriched uranium, or not? The only reason why they sort of control the country right now is that they've had to import a bunch of Hezbollah and Houthi thugs into the streets of Tehran. The best they're doing right now is just licking their wounds and sitting away. President Trump isn't stung by the Iran war. And I really don't want to jinx it, folks. But have you noticed that we haven't really had that many casualties at all on either side? Where are the big civilian casualty numbers among the Iranian people? Oh, but Jake, there was that school on the first day. Well, first of all, we don't really know who was responsible for that school bombing. And as tragic as that was, that seems to be the only event in this. You know how many bombing sorties have gone over Iran since day one? Where are the big civilian deaths? Where are U.S. cats? We're still stuck at 13 on U.S. deaths. That's one too many. I get it. But come on. A major military engagement for this much time, and that's what we're talking about in terms of casualties? Folks, gas prices are up. Yes, they're up, and it's not great. And inflation is up, but it's still not as high as it was under Joe Biden. And gas prices, by the way, don't go up every single day. We've had 4 straight days of them going down slightly. I know it's still really way high. I'm not making an excuse for it, and I'm not hiding it. I do a business report every single morning, and every single morning for the last 18 years, I've told everyone what the national average gas price is. I don't need a war to tell me to do that. It's very important to me and to the economy. So don't remember who you're talking to if that's what you think you're going to push back on me. But folks, President Trump's not stung by this. You know who's stung by the Iran war? China. It's China that's having problems with their supply chain much more than we are because of the war. It's China that's had their own tankers, either accidentally or not, attacked by Iranian ships in the last couple of weeks. China's the one that's stung by the Iran war much more than we are. I mean, it's just not honest. If you want to say that President Trump is stung by the war and it's not great that gas prices are going up, okay. But that's like saying, well, the champ knocked out the opponent in 30 seconds and he chipped a nail. Chipped a nail, the champion takes... who cares? That's missing the forest for the trees. This has been an incredibly successful military campaign. The politics of it are harder. The economics of it are harder. But this lie that the mainstream media is trying to push through, that this war is a failure and that we're dying in droves and that everything's wrong, is really scary. These people must be terrible in a crisis. I would not want to be in the middle of a hurricane or a fire or a blackout with these people. It's like that character in the movie Aliens. I don't know why HBO is showing every single Aliens movie this week. Is there a new one coming out? Does anyone know? They're showing every single Aliens movie all week on all the HBO channels. So I'm seeing Aliens for the first time since it came out in 1986. And the Bill Paxton character, remember him? The entire movie, he just whines, "Oh, we're dead, man, we're dead, we're dead." Why they didn't shoot him in the first scene, I don't know. That's the American news media. We're dead, man. We're effed. And that's the entire. I just did Bill Paxton's. A great actor, by the way. Rest in peace. Right, he passed away. Great actor, by the way, but that wasn't his best role. No, I mean, he's really annoying in that movie, and why they didn't knock him off right away, I don't know. But that's the American news media. The American news media is Bill Paxton in the 1986 movie Aliens. I think I finally got the guy. I don't know why this didn't hit me before. It's been a long time since I'd seen the movie until recently, so that's why. Listen, folks, this summit's going to be interesting. China is the one that is really hurting from this war more than we are, I promise you. And China has the ability to help dial it down. And President Trump is just what the doctor ordered. If you wanted an American president, to bluntly tell the Chinese, hey, listen, you want your oil prices going down? You want some of your problems to go away? Then stop supplying the Iranians. Tell the Iranian regime that maybe we'll find them a girlfriend and a little villa to live in Turkmenistan if they just leave. And that's and let's all get along after that. By the way, that's kind of what George H.W. Bush should have said to the Saudis after 9/11. He should have sat down with the king at the time, King Fahd, and said, listen, most of the people who did this were your people. I know that they're not exactly great people in your society either. They don't like your kingdom either. You're going to help us get rid of them. You're going to get rid of all your anti-Semitic and anti-Israel and anti-American stuff in your textbooks. And you're going to reform Saudi Arabia. And we didn't do that. Instead, we decided to focus on Iraq, focus on Afghanistan. Made a lot of sense to focus on, and that kind of thing. We could have saved a lot of lives if we had done that. If you think that wouldn't have worked, I give you Mohammed bin Salman, who was a teenager at the time, one of the princes at the time. There's no way that he was the only one who thought the way that he does now, which is exactly what I just said. Get rid of the anti-Israel stuff in the textbooks. Get rid of the anti-Semitism. Get rid of the stupid anti-Americanism. And we're going to move ahead as a country. So we can do that with the Chinese. That would be nice. All right, I want to hear what a lot of you have to say about this. 800-848-9222. Going to tell you about some other big stories going on right now when we come back. But I also want to hear from you on the eve of this summit. If you want to talk about that, anything else you want to talk about, I'm Jake Novak, in for Roger Stone. This is the Stone Zone.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
He likes politics and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone. Where's Roger?
Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network, based in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
Roger Stone, who's one of the smartest political minds. Roger Stone was persecuted. People forget he's actually a brilliant political analyst.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
And I'm Jake Novak, filling in for Roger Stone this evening on the Stone Zone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to get your time and your consideration. A couple of other stories I quickly want to do before I go to calls. First off, I was talking about China before, and we got an interesting story out yesterday that I don't think enough people made enough of a big deal about. You have the mayor of Arcadia, California, her name Eileen Wang. She abruptly resigned yesterday as she admitted that she pled guilty to being a paid agent of China and promoting the Chinese communist agenda in this country. Now, of course, Eileen Wang is Chinese-American, but honestly, I don't think that has almost anything to do with it. If you think that the Chinese government is only concerned with people who are mayors of mid-level cities like Arcadia, California, I mean, come on. I think that there are a significant number of our elected leaders at much higher levels in government, particularly in Congress. And yes, I believe it's mostly Democrats, although there's definitely a couple of Republicans I can think of who are significantly under the influence of China. And then there's a bunch of people who don't even know that they're under the influence of China because they've been getting donations from organizations like Act Blue, which we know has been basically a money launderer for foreign political donations, a lot of them coming from China. So we have been infiltrated for many years in this country by the Chinese, which is why there's been among the lunatics online lately, the Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owens, and all those other lunatics, which is why there's been such a focus on another country influencing us, because they don't even make the top 20 of the big donors via American organizations to this country. It's, China's doing it. It's mostly China. It's Qatar, those two countries. And they're not our friends. And this Eileen Wang is just the first. There's going to be many others, I think, who will eventually. Hopefully she'll go states. She's pled guilty. If I were the DOJ prosecutors, I'd be sitting down with her right now and saying, tell us at least the methods and mode that they contacted you, because we might be able to use that as evidence against others. I hope that this becomes the first of many that there's a domino effect and we find out more. Speaking of mayors in New York City, we had a good example of how very much elected leaders in this country think you're stupid. I mean, you have no idea how much the amount of stupidity these people believe you are carrying is a big reason for how they act in office. Mayor Zohran Mamdani takes office, immediately unveils that there's a $12 billion budget deficit, and then he makes a social media video that I'm going to play a second of here, claiming that they've solved the problem. Listen to this.
New York, it's executive budget season, and I'm proud to announce that our city's budget is fully balanced. This budget isn't just about numbers on a page. It determines if our libraries get funded, if a street is safe to cross, if snow is actually shoveled after a storm. And you deserve to know exactly how we got here. We inherited a $12 billion budget deficit.
We are speaking about a fiscal crisis at a scale greater than the Great Recession.
Was the Great Recession? Great Recession. Many said the only way out of this was slashing services and passing an austerity budget. We rejected that. After months of painstaking work, that deficit is now zero.
Yeah, the deficit's zero, Zohran, because the state of New York is bailing you out with the taxpayers' money. You haven't cut spending. You haven't done the hard work. And Bruce Blakeman, if you're listening, and Bruce Blakeman is the one running against the existing governor, Kathy Hochul, the Democrat. And Hochul's the one who caved into this and took taxpayers' money from all over the state, not just New York City, to pay for this. Bruce, I've met you many times. I went to your wife was in my high school, a class above me, and we did a lot of projects together. Bruce, you must campaign throughout the state as the man who's going to stop Mayor Zohran Mamdani from stealing from Buffalo, Rochester, Poughkeepsie, Westchester, Nassau County, every other county that's going to pay for this maniac. You are the one to stop him. Now, before all this happened, with all this tax stuff and the bailout, all he could do was talk about some of the little bit of the anti-Semitism and the socialism of Zohran Mamdani. But you've now been given an issue where it's clear that Zohran Mamdani is a menace to the taxpayers throughout the state. So go to Rochester, go to Buffalo. And I know you've done this, Mr. Blakeman, but do it more. Go to Albany and tell the taxpayers, if you don't want New York City to bilk you dry, I'm your man. And that ought to make this race a close one. It really should. But imagine how stupid Zohran Mamdani has to think the voters are to make a video like that. We reduced you didn't reduce anything. You stole from the rest of the taxpayers of the state. And now the whole state is on the hook for you. All right, going to get to your calls when we come back. 800-848-9222. I'm Jake Novak in for Roger Stone. This is the Stone Zone. Stay with us.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Stone Zone Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?
Here's Roger Stone.
And I'm Jake Novak, filling in for Roger Stone right now on the Stone Zone. Thank you so much for letting me take his place this evening and talk with you. Hey, if you have a friend who's watching TV, tell them to put down the TV remote, tune in to all the different apps where you can get this program and listen live. I'm going to go to our first caller, 800-848-9222. Going to mix the calls and some other big stories. But I want to go with Carmine first. Carmine is my paisan from Nassau County. And Carmine, did you know there's a Yiddish word for paisan? It's called landsman. So we're gonna mix the cultures. We're gonna have a little matzo pizza situation going on. But Carmine, you want to talk about gasoline prices, and I think that's a good topic. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jake. First of all, I love the way you break things down. I really appreciate it. I do a lot of driving, and today I was in Garden City on Old Country Road, and the average price was $4.50. And I broke down, and I finally filled up, but I just came off of Route 109 in West Babylon, and there was two gas stations that had prices $4.05 and $4.09.
Well, so, you know what?
If you get
Carmine, you've just explained to our listeners that the North Shore of Long Island are a bunch of snobs, and the South Shore, the salt of the earth, that's where you get your deals. I'm only half kidding. Listen, one of the nice things, and it's not great to see higher gas prices, but one of the nice things is, first of all, you can shop around, and there are a lot of gasoline apps where you can kind of check on your phone and find out where the price is. I mean, that's a big difference you just said. That was the 35-cent difference, right, Carmine? Am I right there?
I would say it's more like 45.
Okay, so, with the 20-gallon fill-up, we're talking $8 here, $9. I mean, that's not nothing. So, first of all, use those things. Also, if you don't have to make the trip, maybe you don't. Maybe you can solve. I mean, we have some freedom here, at least, because we are in a capitalist society, and we have an opportunity to have some other options. I'm not trying to sugarcoat higher gasoline prices. I am concerned about it. I don't think it's great. Believe me, I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. What I'm trying to do is put it into perspective. We were at well over $5 a gallon national average under Joe Biden. Okay? So especially if you adjust for inflation, we're well below that. So let's think of that, A. And B, this market is very nimble. This isn't like the old days where when oil would go down, it would take weeks and weeks and weeks for us to see that happen with gasoline prices. This is the fourth day in a row where the national average has gone down. It might go up tomorrow, but it has been going down, not by a lot, but it's been more nimble than usual. And that to me is a comfort. So Carmine, I thank you for your call. Folks, we have a national scandal here of this incredible new emergence of sickening, scary anti-Semitism in this country. The neighborhood where I went to high school last night was terrorized by I'm not going to call them pro-Palestinian because these people don't care about the Palestinians, and they certainly don't care about being pro anyone. They just hate. They hate Israel. They hate the Jews. Hate brings you out into the streets to yell at people, not love. Okay, just remember that. Just remember that. And the neighborhood where I went to high school was terrorized last night. Homes, synagogues. I'm sorry, it makes no sense to protest at a synagogue that was closed at the moment about an international incident. It makes no sense. So, of course, you're not going to talk sense with these people. But I'll say something very, very... people will think this is incendiary right now, and I don't care if you think so. The only way this is going to stop is if the members of these Jewish communities and the members of these synagogues make it incredibly clear that if you get within a few feet of our synagogue and you harass and terrorize people and shove people to the ground like they did last night, we will kill you. Have a nice day. Because everyone knows if you did that outside the Abyssinian church in Harlem, that had happened to you. Everybody knows that if you went outside some mosques in this country and shouted them down, you'd get yourself killed. You think these people are choosing synagogues because they're really interested in global economics and global politics and comparative theology? No. They know that they're not going to get pushed back on. Now, I don't know how much longer we have to wait. People talk about things that are frustrating about different minority communities in this country. My frustration with my own community, the Jewish community, is that we do not make anyone feel like they're going to pay a price for messing with us. And so they're going to continue messing with us. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Now, in addition to that, I don't understand why the New York Times isn't being picketed 24/7 by members of the Jewish community right now after this incredible piece of garbage editorial that Nicholas Kristof published yesterday, where he took the anonymous testimony of several Hamas terrorists who told him that Israel is training dogs to rape them in jail. Do you think I made that up? Please look it up if you don't believe me. And the New York Times decided, and granted it's an editorial column and there is a little bit more latitude, but as someone who wrote editorial columns, I was the senior editorial columnist for CNBC for several years. I wrote hundreds of columns. I wrote one every day, actually, which I don't recommend. That was a lot of pressure, but I did it. And even when I made a small math error, we made a big deal out of it. Sometimes for example, I would talk about a policy in the 1960s, and I would say by accident it was 40 years ago when it was really 50, things like that. So they are supposed to be fact-checked. Anonymous former Hamas prisoners who are Hamas terrorists telling someone that they were raped by dogs that were trained to rape them. You really want to put that in the newspaper? I mean, did you get the testimony of the dog? I mean, this is what the New York Times is publishing. This is worse than anything that Der Stürmer, the Nazi newspaper during the Nazi era in Germany, ever published about Jewish people. Ever. It would be funny if it weren't for the fact that there are people who are going to walk around and think that this is true. By the way, you know who should be really angry? The animal rights people. This is a libel on dogs. I really don't think you can train dogs to rape anyone. You can train them to be attack dogs, but, really? Only someone who really, really hates dogs, and Muslims have a theological problem with dogs, so I'm not surprised, would ever even come up with that kind of nonsense. But this is what you can read in the New York Times. Now, is this going to make someone an anti-Semite? No. As you know, for those who listen to me and have read some of the things I've written over the years, anti-Semites aren't created by anything anyone does. I think anti-Semitism is just another form of pure evil. That's all it is. And I don't really think that the Jews have anything to do with anti-Semitism, actually. They're just the targets of it. In other words, nothing that the Jews do or don't do has anything to do with it. As I've been telling my fellow Jews for years, we should be good people because we're commanded to be good people, not because we're worried about the anti-Semites maybe not attacking us. In fact, I think they want to attack us more when we do good, frankly. Now, another inkling that I'm getting as far as the timing of this, it turns out that this ridiculous editorial comes out a day before we are getting actual journalism about what's going on in the region. It turns out, and this is not easy to hear, I'll use the same terminology as Nicholas Kristof. This is not easy to hear. I'm going to tell you anyway. It turns out that we now have evidence documented by people who are on the record about it, who actually were hostages. It turns out that Hamas forced family members to have sex with one another during their captivity. And if you think that this is something that you've never heard before, again, if anyone is listening from Long Island, perhaps you remember one of the most infamous crimes in the history of Long Island in the 1980s. A diner on the North Shore with mirrored windows was taken over by a bunch of robbers, and they made the related members of the hostages do the same thing. This is one of the most depraved acts. There's also ancient accounts of the Romans doing this to some of their captives as well. Dogs being trained to rape someone, that's never been documented by anyone because it's probably not possible. But this really happened, and I have a feeling that that was the timing here. They found a useful idiot in Nicholas Kristof, who is an incredible ignoramus, by the way. They get a useful idiot to publish this the day before this other true account comes out. That's probably what happened here. And what can I tell? What can I tell you? Randy in Manhattan, there's protesters outside your hotel right now harassing people. Is that what's going on, Randy?
No, I've had a lot of protests at FBI-level arrests for a Jewish family own business. I am also a writer. I wrote about a book about Ghana recently, Between the Altar and the Sanctuary. Exactly what you're talking about. Why we are where we are, how we got here, and how the hell we're going to get out of it.
What, the loss of honor in the world is a big deal. I mean, we could use a little Klingon right now for you Star Trek fans. I mean, honestly, where is the honor here? People don't want to go on the record. People want to claim that they're victims and they don't have to follow the rules. People who are so angry at civilization are so resentful, and I want everyone to understand the difference between resentment and jealousy. The politics of an AOC, the politics of a Zohran Mamdani, the politics of a China, it's not jealousy. We keep thinking, and I've heard a lot of people say, oh, anti-Semitism is also about jealousy. The Jews are so successful. No, it's not. It's not about jealousy. First of all, jealousy ain't all bad. Jealousy in a lot of people can be a positive motivator. Oh, I really want those Air Jordans that my neighbor has. I'm going to go out and get a part-time job and get Air Jordans. Resentment is, oh, my neighbor has those Air Jordans and I don't. I'm going to steal them and tear them up and rip them, throw them in the garbage. AOC, Zohran Mamdani, that's the politics of resentment. And the politics of resentment, which is basically communism, is destructive, which is why when you tell people and you're having a debate and you tell people, hey, by the way, this communist policy is going to destroy the whole economy. That's why most of the people who are listening to that and debating you, that doesn't faze them. It turns them on. Oh, yeah? Widespread destruction? Sign me up. These are the people who don't just flip over the chessboard when they lose. They flip it over and then they set it on fire. And that has a lot to do with what we're dealing with in this situation. Lamar in Macon, Georgia, you want to talk about the war in Iran. Go ahead, Lamar.
Sir, it is a thing remarkable to behold. We have troops in the field in a combat theater, and all people in this country are talking about is gasoline prices. One of the signatories of our sacred documents once said that in order for people to be free, they must first be virtuous and moral. The American people are not a moral people. They are a depraved, reprobate people. Donald John Trump, the greatest man alive in the world today, who is on his way now to China, God bless him, has an admirable goal to make America great again. But a great man once said that no nation can be greater than the people who reside within her frontiers.
You know, how would you like to tell our grandparents who rationed during World War II for not just gasoline, but sugar and silk stockings and all kinds of other things and it took them 4 long years of that kind of rationing, because the rationing, by the way, lasted well after the war ended. Truman was under a lot of pressure to end the rationing. He was like, listen, we don't have the supplies that there'll be hyperinflation. And how would you like to tell them, we've had 5 weeks of gas prices that aren't even the highest that we've had in the last 3 years? And they'd be like, what? So? Iran, and by the way, it's important to remember that these comparisons between Iran and Nazi Germany are absolutely apt. The Nazis trained, funded, and guided the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the beginning of Islamism in the world. The Muslim Brotherhood is the parents of Hamas, the parents of ISIS, the parents of Al-Qaeda, the parents of the Iranian regime. Ayatollah Khomeini, who founded the Iranian Islamist regime, was a follower of the Nazi-funded Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, who from Berlin during World War II had a daily radio program that was broadcast throughout the world. That's why they act so much like Nazis. That's why they sound so much like Nazis. Are you a Harry Potter fan? Islamists are... Yeah, well, I'm talking to everyone. Islamists are the last Horcrux of Hitler. You know your Harry Potter. It's a piece of his soul. And Lamar, I love your emotion. You know, we don't have to be blind followers of anything. FDR did not have the blind following of the American people when he was president during World War II, but they sure as heck weren't giving him a hard time about 6 weeks worth of higher gasoline prices, for crying out loud. And they sure is, and the mainstream media wasn't making points about every little weakness that he might have had. I mean, you know, we had some failures in the beginning of World War II. We had failures going all the way through 1943. The news media didn't hide them, but they didn't make it the headline every single time. The overall story was the overall story, which wasn't as bad. And there are a lot of people in journalism, and I've been in this business for over 32 years, who think that the job of journalists is to just find problems. That's part of our job. But when I ran newsrooms, and I've ran many and news shows, my policy always was with my entire team, and that included the anchors, the big-headed anchors. If you report on something negative more than twice, the third time, you need to at least talk to someone who has a solution. We're not in the job of just telling everyone how bad it is without trying to do something about it. All right, we're going to take more of your calls, and I'll wrap this up. Here, I'm Jake Novak, here for Roger Stone on the Stone Zone. Stay with us for the final stanza.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
It is a great, great person, Roger Stone.
The Stone Zone.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix's Remarkably Bright Creatures. What if a Pacific octopus held the key to a mystery that could heal your heart? Well, that's Tova's reality. An elderly widow working at an aquarium. Tova forms an unlikely friendship with the curmudgeonly Marcellus, whose remarkable intelligence leads her to a life-changing discovery. Remarkably Bright Creatures is now playing, only on Netflix.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
Roger Stone, who's a one of the smartest political minds. Roger Stone was persecuted. People forget he's actually a brilliant political analyst.
Now, get him his own. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
And I'm Jake Novak in for Roger Stone. I don't know if I've been persecuted like Roger Stone was. I've been persecuted as a Jets fan. That's persecution. I mean, it's been a long time. You have no idea, though. My Jets fandom isn't even in the remote ballpark of my fan suffering over the years. I'm a Columbia University football fan. The university has become more and more distasteful to me every single year, but I still love those guys who play. We went many, many years without winning games. We had a very long streak of never having a winning season. And then 2 years ago, we tied for the Ivy League championship. I guess I can die in peace now. I don't really know. But anyway, persecution is that's an important word to make sure you're using properly. I'd say that Roger Stone was persecuted. I'd say that's a fair word. A lot of other people use that term though, and they're being a little bit dramatic. Stu in Brooklyn, you have some thoughts about the war in Iran and how this might end up.
Yeah, Jake. We are in what's the new word for a guerrilla war is called an asymmetric war. Where the first rule of warfare is there are no rules. Here's a scenario that could actually happen. The Iranians decide to put an old Scud on a container ship, and 400 miles off the port of New York, they launch it. We'd have about 4 minutes to respond. You can kiss the lower harbor and lower Wall Street goodbye.
You mean a Scud? A Scud, SCUD, you mean?
It's a Scud.
Yeah. I thought you said stud. Okay, a Scud. Yeah, okay. First of all, I don't know where the Iron Dome batteries are deployed here in the United States. I do know that about 3 years ago, maybe 4, we did deploy at least 2 major Iron Dome facilities in this country. It's been kept a relative secret, although it's considered, we most likely believe that there's one protecting D.C., and we believe there's another one protecting some of our nuclear weapons in the Pacific Northwest. I wouldn't be surprised if we have something like that in New York, but and in your scenario, I don't know if that would protect us from something like that. Possibly, but I don't know. There always are a lot of possibilities, especially when you're dealing with a suicidal regime. I thought you were going to use a scenario of like a dirty bomb, which is, to me, a much more serious situation. Somebody gets a primitive, crude nuclear device, gets the different parts and ships them separately, and then somebody in maybe a food cart or a food truck detonates it in the middle of Manhattan, and we have tens of thousands mass casualties and radiation poisoning for God knows how long. I'm not trying to give anybody any ideas, but unfortunately, I'm not the only one who's talked about this in the past. But look, folks, I can think of a lot of doomsday scenarios. What I ask everyone who thinks of doomsday scenarios to do is to think just as much of positive scenarios. Try to have some balance in your life. We could also be on the verge, folks, of an Iranian people and an Iranian regime that is no longer hostile to us, that has those natural resources open to the rest of the world, where the significant others in our lives, if we're men, can buy beautiful gold jewelry, which they have in Iran suddenly at a discount because it's been hoarded on the market there for a long time. There's possibilities for good outcomes here. And I think that, in my opinion, they outweigh these negative scenarios. But yes, we have to consider all of them. That's what a responsible nation does. I'm Jake Novak. I was filling in for Roger Stone this evening. It's a Tuesday night. The weekend's almost halfway here.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?